Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast with your hosts George Tsounyas
and Maria Petrakou. Now we know you're all super keen to hear what we got up to this summer in more detail. Many of you have been following our stories on Instagram, but we know you definitely want to hear more.
Wait, what's that? Is there some people that are not following us on Instagram?
Oh my God.
I mean, come on. You need to head over to the gram and hit that follow button. And for those of you that don't know, it's really simple. It's just like the name of the podcast, at My Greek Island. So make sure you follow us to keep up to date with all our adventures and wherever we might be.
That is very true. Now, this summer, George and I visited one island together and one each separately, clearly to cover more content, right, George?
Yeah, well, I just needed a break from you, maybe. So this episode is the one that we covered and visited together.
And that island is?
Kythnos. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast, dedicated to take you, the wanderlust, on a journey through Greece.
There are 227 inhabited Greek islands. Which one will you visit next?
My Greek Island, with your hosts George and Maria.
Kalimera, Maria.
Kalimera, George.
So as we said in the intro, today we're talking about the wonderful island called Kythnos. So as we do with all episodes in the podcast, give us a bit of a background and some information on this magical island.
Aha. Okay, so Kythnos is actually part of the cluster of islands known as the Cyclades, which is clearly the most popular cluster of islands in Greece. So those of you wondering which ones are part of the Cyclades, as we say in Greek, Mykonos, Paros, Santorini, Naxos, all of these islands are part of the Cyclades. But Kythnos is actually one of those less touristy islands of the cluster. It's based very close to Athens, exactly between the islands of Gea, which is how it would be written on the map. However, the most common referred to name by everyone is Zia. So just be aware of that. If you hear Zia, Gea, it's interchangeably the same island. And Serifos. So Kythnos is located exactly in the middle of the islands of Zia and Serifos. Now, due to the fact that it's quite close to Athens, Kythnos is quite popular with the Athenians, but also quite popular because it's still less touristy and still quite rustic. So the island has a population of approximately 1,500 in the winter. I think someone told us, George, that number can go up to like 40,000 in the summer. Do you remember?
Yeah, in the summer, quite busy.
Yeah.
As we'll find out.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to note that the island can be reached from two ports. So the port of Piraeus, which is the main port in Athens, and the port of Lavrio. Now, there's a quite significant difference in the price and the time, depending on which port you choose. So, for example, me and George chose the port of Lavrio to travel out there for various reasons, one of them being that we actually wanted to visit the archaeological site of Sounio on our way. So we chose the port of Lavrio, which is quite close by. I think it's about 10-15 minutes away from Sounio. And Lavrio is also, as I said previously, significantly cheaper. So just to give everyone a bit of a feel, if you go from Piraeus, the boat ride is about approximately 3 hours, and the cost per passenger, if you go with one of the economy seating, is about 30 euros per person, and for the car is 65. Whereas if you go from Lavrio, the cost is approximately half, so it goes down to 17 euros approximately per passenger. The car, instead of 65, is approximately 40. and the trip is 1.5 hours. But of course, we need to bear in mind that it's not easy to get to Lavrio airport, Lavrio port, not airport, port if you don't have your own car, and it is a bit of a journey if you don't plan to do anything on the way. So that's just something to bear in mind. So that's in a nutshell where Kythnos is, how you get there, and just some main facts about the island.
I think the archaeological site of Sounio is really worth the visit, and it's on the way. You pass the Athens Riviera, which, if you're lucky and you listen on, we might cover in a future episode, because I love the Athens Riviera.
You do, so do I. Yeah, that's definitely a great one. So yeah, since I guess one thing to tell our listeners, usually George does tend to interview me, but given that this was an island that we visited together, we're sort of going to be switching between so that you get a bit of his views as well on the island. So the next question, George, is for you. And I'm going to ask you what the general vibe of the island is, and who would you say that it's for?
Yeah, so the general vibe of the island, it doesn't have mass tourism, even though it did say, we met a local that said it gets up to 40,000 tourists in the summer. What we mean by mass tourism, because there's no airport, and it's mainly Athenians. There are some foreign tourists, but it's not like your Santorini and Mykonos. The main town of Chora is quite small, and you do get the sense in the evenings, everyone sort of congregates around there. So you get the sense that it is very, very busy. You have to get there a bit early for the car parking. But and the island is pretty much great for everyone, I would say. Couples, friends, families. It has something for everyone. It's not too big, but it's not too small. And yeah, the general vibe is rustically Greek.
Yeah.
I think that's how I would sum it up.
And I think it combines enough organised beaches, enough unorganised beaches, so it sort of like covers all people's preferences as well when it comes to that. And it's got a nice balance between them. Yeah,
it has a good balance, and looking forward to answering some questions on this podcast. We're having a bit of it's a 50-50 this time. Maybe that's because I kicked up a fuss and was like, I need some airtime. No, I didn't. I'm joking. But So what is the one thing that Kythnos is known for?
One? Can I mention two?
Yeah, okay, because I don't think I can think of anything.
Okay, so I think the first thing that I'm going to mention is that Kythnos is known for its hot springs, and those are located in the area called Loutra, which literally in English translates to baths. And I think the hot springs is the reason for the older name of the island prior to it actually being called Kythnos. So actually the island was called Thermia, which means warm, right? It's hot.
You really did your research.
I did, as always, George. As always.
Yeah, you did. I don't know why I'm surprised.
Now, with George, we actually visited Loutra, but we didn't visit there's actually a spa, the old baths, because they've been closed for a few years and they haven't yet reopened. I'm not sure when they will, but as we experienced together, there is a hot stream of water flowing into the sea, and there is a man-made little pool which you can go and sit into. However, when we visited, it was quite busy, but there are days when it's not very busy, and it's
really hot.
It's boiling. It's really
gorgeous.
Hot. Yeah, it's really nice. Well, when you put your feet exactly where the water was coming out, it was boiling. He was not happy with the sensation.
Because you were like bigging up, like, it's going to be really hot. It's going to be really hot. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I put my foot in and I was like, I mean, I can't use expletives, swear words. Basically, I think a swear word came out of my mouth. I was like, oh my God, I was not expecting that. So that was your first one. So you can do a second one because I don't really have.
So the second one is the beach, Kolona. It's
Kolona. Yeah.
It's featured in many photos of Greece, maybe not as much as the famous beach in Zante, or Zakynthos, as we say, the famous beach called Navagio, where there's a shipwreck, which is featured in many photos about Greece, but Kolona is also featured quite a lot. And we will be posting a picture from Kolona, and I think I've already posted and featured it a few times, because this was not my first time in Kythnos with George. It was actually my third. So I think I've already featured Kolona with one of my own footage, with one of my own pictures. So we will refeature it. It's a very, very known beach, and definitely one worth visiting, but early in the morning, because it does tend to get quite busy, but also is very popular with the boats and the yachts.
Yeah. And it's good to go there by boat, not to drive there, because the road to drive there can be a bit iffy, I think, right?
You can drive to Kolona. It's a narrow road. It's a dirt road, and you probably need a 4-wheel drive. And I wouldn't recommend it, because if it's such a narrow road, if someone's coming on the opposite side, I think there's a specific point where if someone is coming on the opposite side, you have to go all the way down the hill and start all over again. So
I'm getting heart palpitations as we're talking about it. So I didn't realize it was your third time. Was it the best time? The third time? Was it the best time?
Definitely, George. Definitely the best.
Good. We'll soon find out if the people you went with on the first and second, they say something, means they're listening to the podcast, which is great. But sorry, she had a better time with me.
I think that, to be fair, I've had fun all times, but I think with you, because despite the fact that we had bad weather, we were able to explore things that I didn't get to see the first time round, and we discovered things that I didn't even know existed, and those things were definitely the highlight of this trip.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the highlights.
We are.
Okay.
All right, so George, can you please tell our listeners, where did we stay and for how long?
Okay, so whilst the main village is absolutely lovely, and it is that sort of Cycladitico, which means like Cyclades sort of traditional Greek island vibe, we stayed in Chora. I was really pleasantly surprised. I didn't have many expectations. However, we did think we booked like the most centrally located apartment, which I think we're going to have a picture. It was literally in the main square. The main village, the main square in the village was very, very noisy. So luckily, because I'm a light sleeper, I had earplugs and it was bearable. We stayed for five nights, but we will show you the location of this. The bars in the middle, because we went towards the end of August, they were going on until around 4 a.m. So I think if you were in maybe 150 meters in any direction away from where we were, it would probably get much quieter, because we met some people that were staying, about 150 meters from us, and the noise was not such of an issue. But we did learn that lesson, so you don't have to have the same issue. And unfortunately, some of the reviews on this particular apartment didn't mention the noise as much. So if you are wanting to stay into the main village, I would recommend it, but just don't stay right in the center where all the bars and the restaurants are. Try and stay a bit further out, and then it's perfect, because in the evening, that's where it's all going on, and you don't really want to be driving on the roads in the middle of the night. So, yeah. Did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, just the fact that if people think that staying a bit further away is going to add significant time to your walk journey, it won't. It's literally just an extra 5 minutes of walking in the town. And it was a bit unfortunate, because the bar, and I mean, we went end of August. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like mid-August, which is right at the peak, and the people are there. I mean, if anyone wants to be out and about at the bars until they close, then maybe the location is perfect. Yeah, but for someone that wants to sleep before 4 a.m. in the morning, we definitely recommend staying a bit further out. I mean, George is a light sleeper. He had earplugs. I'm not a light sleeper. Like, I can sleep through practically anything, which is probably evident from the stories that he was trolling me when I was sleeping at the beach under a lot of noise. But thankfully, George had an extra pair of earplugs with him, so I was able to sleep at night, because even I struggled.
Would our listeners, I think it might be self-explanatory given what we said about parking and using a car, but do you think people need a car?
Yeah, I think they do. Although the distances are not that big. I mean, we chose to bring a car with us, and we brought it with us from Athens, mainly because we chose the port of Lavrio. I think if we chosen the port of Piraeus, we might not have taken a car. And the island does offer many car rentals. I mean, on previous times that I visited the island, we rented a car there. So it's possible. Now, if for any reason you don't want to drive, or you can't drive, there are buses available on the island, and they do the routes from the main villages, so you can possibly get around, but clearly you will be more independent and can get so much more in if you do have a car.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah.
George, give us a list of the top beaches of the island.
Okay, I'm going to mention 4. And I'm committing ourselves to having these 4 beaches going to be on the Instagram post at My Greek Island. So the first one we've talked about already is Kolona Beach, which is the one that is Kythnos is probably most famous for. It's a great beach, and from that beach you can walk over the coast to another little beach, and where there is like another sort of hot spring that you can go into, much smaller than the one in Loutra,
and not as hot as the one in Loutra.
Yep. And that's where also we met a local who had like a canoe and kayak sort of company, and they do kayak or canoe sort of sightseeing visits, which looks quite cool, but we didn't have much time. The second beach is Flampouria, and don't worry about the pronunciation, how it's spelled. We will have you covered. It's great for the sunset. We saw the sunset there one night. It was relatively quiet, and it was just ourselves, and there was someone playing a guitar. I think that was just on that particular day. It wasn't like a thing. And then
can I add something here? So
yes.
At Flampouria, there's also a church, if you remember.
Oh yeah, there was that church. Yeah,
and apparently every year for whatever reason we didn't get to go to it, but there is a festival once a year at that church, and it's considered to be one of the best of festivals that happen on the island.
And they go on till like 11 a.m. I thought that was a joke, but
no, they actually do. They actually do.
Like that is very late, or early. I don't know. Anyway, the third beach is Apokrousi, which is near to Kolona, and this for me, as well as having a good sunset, I just wasn't really expecting it to be as nice. I don't know. Maybe it was because we were in good company, or just it was what it was. I just remember the sunset, and I've got an epic picture of me in the sunset there. So if you want to take a pic for the gram, and obviously the sea is stunning. So that's the third one, Apokrousi. And the fourth one, Maria briefly mentioned, is Loutra. The reason I like this beach is because of the hot springs. Really, really like that there. And they're my 4 beaches that I kind of have on my mind. And then there's the beach where you can walk up to the little church. Was that Ayos Stefanos?
That was, I think it was called Nausa, actually, but I think it's not tagged on the map correctly. Ayos Stefanos is the beach that was close to Arodou's Tavern.
Ah, okay, that one, yeah. Fine.
But I also want to mention one more beach, George, which is Antonides Beach, because the majority of the ones that you mentioned are not fully unorganized. Antonides was the one that we went down the stairs, and it was a bit windy that day, and was a little small,
like a little golf.
Yeah, a little small golf, and it was a gorgeous beach. Completely unorganized and very so I would definitely add that one to the list for those that enjoy the more unorganized beaches.
Yeah, and the other thing with Kythnos, there's lots of beaches you can't really access by car, and there is various companies that offer, as you said, like tours and trips to go to these beaches. We didn't actually have time, and the weather wasn't great for that on the days that we could have gone, but something for people to consider. So we've done the beaches, but I think people like to hear, and I also like to hear about people's highlights. So do you have any highlights of the island for you that really stood out? Apart from spending time with me, there has to be some other highlights. So can you give us some highlights? And I think we're probably going to have similar ones, so I'm going to have to choose something different if you've already chosen it. So off you go. Right.
Okay, so I think my biggest highlight was when we visited the caves. So there's some caves called Tourkala Caves, which are effectively old mining sites, and as they have, I don't know, they've drilled or blown up part of a mountain to go mining, these very interesting caves have been created, and it looks like you're in a movie from the Pirates of the Caribbean. And I mean,
Literally.
we read it on the review that it were on the Google Maps, on the reviews, we read that other people had mentioned that, oh, it's like you're in a movie of the Pirates of Caribbean. And I'm like, oh, come on. And then we get there, and I think George has a video of me saying like, oh, wow. And then I think I swore a bit, but yeah. So that for me was one of the biggest highlights.
It's so underrated. Like, I don't know why people are like, you need to go there. It's not that hard to get to.
It's not hard at all. It's not hard at all to get to, especially if you follow the correct route. But do you remember when we asked someone how to get there, and he was like, "Why do you want to go there?" And it sort of decreased our expectations significantly when he said that. And then we get there, and we were just so impressed. However, we climbed all the way up, and I don't think I would recommend people climbing up. Like, I'd recommend going through them and then seeing the lake, which has been created. But then I'd probably recommend leaving, because when we went up, there's not really much to see.
Yeah,
and it was quite difficult as well. Yeah, it was quite difficult, and it was also, if you don't have your bearings right, you could get lost on the top. So I probably wouldn't recommend that. The second one that I'm going to mention is the castle that we went to.
Oh, I love the castle.
Which I think if it hadn't rained and the temperature hadn't gone down so much, we probably wouldn't have gone, because it was quite hot. But due to the fact that we were lucky with the temperature drop due to the bad weather, we got to go, and we were extremely lucky that it started to rain en route. But it started to rain at the only point we had cover. Do you remember? Like, there was this big thing we could go under and cover ourselves from the rain.
We were like two Dora the Explorers.
We were. So that was really nice as well. And the locals say that if the castle had not been destroyed in the 1500s, that is probably where Chora would have been located, and therefore it would have been the highest Chora in I think in the Cyclades, and probably the most beautiful as well, because it had amazing and stunning views.
And this is another place it's good to have your bearings. So if anyone does want to go to this, we've got you covered, because I was doing a takeover of the My Greek Island account, and we've got step by step how to get there, because at some points it's really easy to get confused and go the wrong way. But yeah, if you want to get to that castle, you're in Kythnos, make sure you're at My Greek Island on Instagram, and you can see it on the story highlights.
Yep, saved. Definitely saved. And then the last one I'm going to say is Loutra. I really, really liked Loutra, especially, I mean, once, I think my second trip that I was there was a full moon. There was no one else in Loutra, and you could actually sit in this little man-made pool full of hot water and just enjoy a full moon. So that, I think it can be a very magical experience if you are there at the right day and the right time. And then I think the sunset at Apokrousi was very, very nice. We enjoyed a very nice sunset there.
Yeah, we've bigged this one up. It's because I think I was just not expecting it. And I think that day I'd kind of injured my foot. I'd stepped on something, didn't I? And I was like obsessed with like my foot hurting. Do you remember?
Oh my God.
And it was literally like the tiniest thing went into my foot. But anyway, yeah, that was one of my highlights. The other one, I'm surprised you didn't choose anything to do with food, but I did choose one with food. And that one was Taverna Arodou, which is on Agios Stefanos beach. And the reason I chose this one, the calamari. The reason I chose it was because it was so like authentically rustic, and it was just like very basic, but like in a good way. Just had really great food. It wasn't trying to be anything. The guy was just like, sit down. We had amazing food, like this lovely pasta dish. We had calamari. I don't know what else we had. We had
a salad. We literally had a salad, taramosalata.
Yeah.
Which again was amazing.
The pasta,
and then
huge.
He said, and then he kept insisting, because I think we wanted to order some other type of fish, and he kept insisting, no, take the calamari. We make a very good calamari, and honestly, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was.
It was really,
nice.
really good. So what else, George?
The other one is Maria actually liked to sleep in on this holiday.
Oh my
So
God,
regardless of the fact that the late nights because of the music, she was taking it a bit more of a chilled approach to Kythnos and our holidays this year. But I'm training for a marathon, so I was getting up very early and discovering some running routes. So because we were staying in Chora, which is like the main village in the middle of the island, there were some really great running routes, but very, very hilly. So if you're a runner or looking to run and want to try a bit of hills, there's some great elevation runs. So shout out to all the runners out there. But I was getting up at like 5-6 a.m. Maybe not 5, that's a bit an exaggeration, maybe 6 a.m. But it was really worth it. I was getting back, Maria was probably still sleeping. I think I was having my breakfast and then we're setting off for the day, which was great. And the 2 or 3 days where the weather wasn't ideal, it actually helped a bit more. So there were my highlights. We know that you like to combine.
Yeah, so wait. I want to add something on what you just said. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. So for those of you that don't already know or haven't caught up on it, because we've said it quite a few times, or I've said it quite a few times, is that George is actually training not for just any marathon, but for the Athens Marathon. So he has created, in case you are a runner or you want to follow his running journey, he has created a separate account called The Road to Athens, right? So the road to the number Athens.
Yeah, that is indeed on the 13th of November.
I'm going to tag you so people can follow you in case they want to follow your running journey. So indeed I admired his dedication on this holiday, and it sort of worked out because I usually am quite the early riser. On this holiday, I was sleeping in, which gave George plenty of time and opportunities to go running without worrying about me.
No, definitely. I didn't feel guilty that you'd be waiting around. So, thanks for the encouragement, Han. I'm nervous about that. We might do an episode about the marathon, but I would like to talk about it more once it's been done. So we know you like to do your combination islands and like to do a few islands as people are getting to know us. So would you recommend combining Kythnos with any other islands? Some people listen to us might do a bit of a tour of Greece or a tour of the islands. So what could we combine it with?
Exactly, or do a bit of island hopping. So as I said at the beginning, it's located exactly in the middle of Dia and Serifos. So definitely the easiest and closest islands to combine Kythnos with is one of these two, or both. Although this year I chose to combine it with Syros, but I would note that there are not routes every single day between the islands, so that's something to keep in mind. And I had to shuffle my plans by a day. So initially we were planning on going to Kythnos with George a day later, but we ended up going a day earlier in order to accommodate the schedule of the route from Kythnos to Syros. And clearly stay tuned because there's going to be another episode about Syros, so stay tuned on that. But then it's also possible to combine Kythnos with many other islands in the Cyclades, and in order to see, it's probably best to check the routes. The most common routes are the ones with Hellenic seaways and Zante ferries. So if you want to get a bit of inspiration of which other islands you could combine, head over to their websites and check the routes so you can have a better indication of what other islands you can combine. But it can probably be combined with most of the islands.
Yeah. And also you can check out ferries.gr, hashtag not an ad, but it is quite a good site for all the ferries and the...
It is, but I would caveat there that when there isn't a route on the day that you select, it will give you alternative routes on other dates close to the date. So, and then it will write in red, there will be a small print saying not the day of the route you selected. So just bear that in mind.
Do your research, people.
Yeah, so just make sure that you double check the date, just in case it's brought up an alternative route, and you accidentally missed the small print. Although it is in red and it should be visible, and it is visible, you might, if you're not aware, you might just consider automatically that it's the route on the day that you selected, and it might not be.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so this one is going to be for you because we all know, well, people should know by now, that you love your tips and tricks. And we have mentioned a few already, but let's do a bit of a recap of some tips and tricks that you would give our My Greek Island family of listeners.
Okay, so number one, getting to the castle. I think that was a bit of a mission. And it was quite funny because we had spoken to some friends of mine, which we accidentally bumped into in Kythnos, and they had attempted to go to the castle, I think the day before us. And they kept saying, we followed Google Maps and it took us to a point where it was saying that there was a road to the left, but there was no road. So they left the car there and attempted to climb the hill where apparently on Google Maps it said there was a road that they could drive up, but they couldn't. So they walked up it, and then they got to a point where there was a fence and they couldn't go any further. So do not follow Google Maps for the castle. There is a sign, and it's sort of written on the rock where you need to stop.
Yeah.
And George has has documented the route very, very well. So head over to the Instagram and check the highlights that we've saved, because otherwise you might end up getting somewhere where you can't get to the castle. You don't know how to get to the castle, and it's not a route which is very, very clearly visible.
Yep.
So that would be the first
one.
I think the second would be for the beaches. We've mentioned quite a few which are accessible or ones which are difficult to get to by car. But bear in mind in general, just don't head to a beach in Kythnos without checking the reviews about the roads. Some of the beaches that we have not mentioned are not accessible easily by car, or have a very, very bad road, or need a 4-wheel drive in order to get there. One of them is the beach called Stifos. We do not recommend going there. The road is very bad, very, very bad.
We went there for you.
Yeah, we went there for you, and we got a bit stuck and had a bit of a bad. Yeah, well. Anyway, the third tip I'm going to say is the one that George mentioned at the beginning. Just make sure that your if you want to stay in Hora, just make sure that your accommodation is not next to the bars. Give yourself a bit of space from the bars. Otherwise, you might regret it if you want to go to bed before 4 a.m. The next one I would say is the parking. So there's a huge parking lot in Hora, but during the peak months and even during the days that we went, parking was challenging after 8 p.m. So get there early if you're heading into Hora for the nighttime, or you're staying there. It can be quite challenging to park after 8 p.m. And then the last one is that the more popular restaurants of the island require reservations. If not, then they do tend to get quite busy, so you might not be able to eat there.
Yep. I'm going to add one, actually. I've got one. Is if you're not feeling adventurous to go to the caves that we talked about, Tourkala Caves, I think the main town called Driopida does have its own caves, and you can visit them quite easily in the town.
That's very true.
And see some caves. But we did both, but we preferred the one with the adventure because there was no one there. And this one in Driopida that we'll talk about and we'll tag is much more accessible and easy to see.
It is indeed. It's not as phenomenal as Tourkala Caves, and the images that you will see, and the whole layout is not as amazing as Tourkala Caves. But there's definitely an alternative, as George said.
Yeah. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the quick fire round. So it means quick. And
you're saying that because I take my time, aren't you, George?
We're probably going to be running out of time. People will be like, come on, wrap this episode up, Hans. Where was your favourite meal?
The kalamari Arodou. Where was yours?
Mine was Driopida. We went into the centre bit. It was just a very nice vibe in the centre. There wasn't a particular restaurant because we ate a few, but I just liked the vibe in that centre of the town in Driopida. What was your favourite beach? Now, most of you should know the beaches by now. We've mentioned them a lot of times, so... I'm
going to say Antonides, the unorganised one.
Okay. Mine was Apokrousi, which is one where we saw the sunset. What was your favourite town or village?
I'm going to say Loutra. because I've
Loutra.
stayed in Loutra, because I've spent a lot of time in Loutra in general, and I really, really enjoy the hot waters flowing into the sea.
Yeah. I think my favourite town or village is where we stayed actually in Chora, because I just thought it's quite underrated. And on the last day, we did go on a bit of a walk and discovered some like little
beautiful.
streets that we were like, why didn't we know this before?
Yeah,
it was so
yeah.
nice, really nice to take pictures. I just really loved it. So
there's
yeah,
another
I would say
tip and
Chora.
trick then. Wander around
Make sure you
Chora.
wander around.
Wander
Chora,
around.
yeah.
Don't just stay to the main road. Literally take all of the side streets and wander,
Yes.
because there's a lot. Although there's not, you won't find any shops or anything, but the houses are just gorgeous, and there's some beautiful spots for some pictures.
Agreed. Yeah. And what's your favourite memory?
The caves, by far the caves.
The
Tourkala Caves.
Mm.
I think that moment when I saw the lake was just, it has literally been carved in my brain.
Yeah. I think my memory, well, one day we did go on a sunset walk from the top of the road to this beach we talked about, Flampouria, and we walked down to the beach. I know this is a bit of a long story, but it was my favourite memory and I want to talk about it. We went on this walk down kind of the mountain in the sunset with a local walking group that we kind of met the leader from. And it was nice talking to people. Maria did love it, so she was loving the trekking. However, what we didn't envisage was when we got to the bottom and saw the sunset and it was getting dark, there was this sort of festival going on, and everyone we went with, they actually kind of lived on that sort of village area and kind of went to their houses to get ready. And we'd left our car at the top. So we were like, well, we need to go and get the car somehow, like, because we need to have dinner and there's nothing much around there. So Maria and I ended up walking up not the hill. We walked up the road, which is around 3-kilometer trek.
And very elevated
very elevated, high elevation. I'm not sure Maria found it funny, but for me, it was the memory of us walking up that hill and me dancing away and trying to get Maria to dance to some tunes. I've just got it on my story.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny.
I think I was simultaneously cursing myself and but also enjoying the fact that you were just finding everything so amusing.
It was great.
And not a single car stopped to take us up.
No
Not a
one
single...
stopped. So we learned the lesson by we will pick up someone that does auto stop. So before we close the episode, last question for us both. What is the one thing you wish you knew about Kythnos before you went there?
I'm going to say that I wish I knew that it wasn't connected to neighbouring islands every day. Like, I was under the impression that it was. I have no idea why, because I usually do my research on this. And the fact that I had to change my dates to get there. And what about you?
For me, I think what I think would be really good, I wish I'd known, is ask locals in a taverna, when you go to a bar or a cafe, of any local festivals that are taking place whilst you're in on the island, and also that a lot of beaches can be accessed only by boats or by a kayak or a canoe, and it would be good to plan that in or factor it in if you want to do that, planning ahead of time so you know where that would be. So I think if we had thought about that, we would have probably planned to do it, whereas we kind of run out of time.
Yeah. I've got one more question for you, George.
Okay.
Based on this episode, which Greek words would you share with our listeners?
I was going to say Greek word of the day. I would be, Kythnos for me was what we call an adventure. And that in Greek is peripetia. So Kythnos was a peripetia, which means adventure. Mm-hmm. Do you have a word for Kythnos?
What about the castle?
Or this episode?
What about the Greek word for castle?
Word for castle. Oh, that's also good. Peripetia is adventure and castle is?
Castro.
Castro. So you've learnt two words, peripetia and castro. Right, my Greek Islanders. This comes to the end of another episode of this podcast.
Now you know the drill. If you like this episode, share it to share the love with the My Greek Island community, where everyone is welcome. And
don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And maybe give us a little rating from wherever you're listening to us from, so you are notified every time a new episode drops. And if you have any suggestions or requests, get in touch.
And for those of you visiting Greece, don't forget, to tag @MyGreekIsland on Instagram for a future feature. Until then, see you later, or as they say in Greek,
Ta λέμε.